comic books made more sense. You know it is fictitious without pretense.
Hey all, I decided to take a look at Action Comics 549 from 1983. I picked this up many moons ago because I thought it was going to feature the Phantom Zone criminals from the movie, Superman and Superman 2. And as you can see here, Superman's looking over a fight between the Vrangs, who are aliens that menaced Krypton many moons ago, and what looks like Ursa, but it's really Faora, and Faora does not look like this in the comic. And Jaxer looking a lot like General Zod from the movies, but it's Jaxer. And this is General Zod. General Zod was usually depicted in the comics as being bald and having a beret. He looked a lot like Lex Luthor, and if they didn't name him from time to time in the comics, you'd think it was Lex Luthor. So let's get into it. 60 cents back in the day, 1983. Here's a commercial for model kits. They're big in 1980s comics commercials. MPC made a whole variety of stuff, as you can see. So Superman meets the Zod Squad. So this is continuing from a previous issue. General Zod is recounting the events that they saw from the Phantom Zone. The Vrangs coming to Earth. They were sworn to fight them even if it means teaming up with Superman. They've been on Earth for a little bit, the Phantom Zone criminals, posing as regular people and doing good deeds, to be honest, with their superpowers. They escaped the Phantom Zone by using crystal kryptonite, and so now they're here. So Superman's going to discover them. At one point, Lois Lane is out, following someone, and it turns out to be Faora, who sets a forest on fire. And there she is right there. So that's the Faora I know with that crazy getup. And so now Clark Kent is sort of suspicious. Here's an ad for the Kool-Aid Man video game for Intellivision. And you can see the Intellivision controllers here. I had Intellivision. Thinking back, it was probably my dad's, but I thought it was mine. And I had lots of games for it. I didn't have Kool-Aid Man. If you look at Kool-Aid Man now, like you see it on YouTube, people playing it, it's a crazy little game. It's these two kids running around collecting items and stuff, and then they set Kool-Aid Man free, and there's this big explosion. He comes out of a wall just like the commercials, and then Kool-Aid Man runs around killing all the enemies. Fun stuff. One of the earlier depictions of product placement in a video game, with like an advertising mascot in a video game, so that's pretty cool. And here's Star Frontiers. This commercial was in everything around 82, 83, both Marvel and DC, TSR. So, Clark turns into Superman, and he doesn't pay this cab fare too, which is unsupermanly of him. Meanwhile, this guy is making deals with some sort of gang member, giving him all this crazy futuristic tech. And meanwhile, the Phantom Zone criminals are doing their thing. This dude, pretty sure that's Jaxer, is a crossing guard, looking very authoritarian here, and stops a car and then flies off. He stops the car from hitting these kids. So that's a good thing, Here's a homeless dude being mugged, but it turns out the homeless dude has superpowers and fights these guys and flies off. And so all these guys come to this guy's beck and call. And here's something, I remember there are these kinds of clubs for music and things where you could subscribe and get like a whole bunch of different cassettes or whatnot for a low price. Here it's video games. And I don't know what system it's for here. It says Atari video computer system, but there were more than one. So So yeah, that's weird. I don't know if anyone really bought into this. I wouldn't have, because I would think there's something suspicious. So here Superman comes and this guy turns out to be General Zod. I thought that was Lex Luthor because it just looks like him. So anyway, Superman fights all these Phantom Zone criminals. He fights a whole bunch of them. How the hell do you all escape? And then Faora has Lois hostage and says, I'll break her neck. And then pushes her down. So these other Phantom Zone criminals prevent Lois from being rescued. And Zod then rescues Lois and says, listen, this is not why we're here. It's like the Vrangs are coming, and we're sworn to fight them. And we'll even team up with you, Superman. So, meanwhile, the Vrangs from orbit shoot Superman, and he disappears. And they're like, oh my god, they killed him. So, they fly off and like, let's get the Vrangs now. So they fly off and they see their ship in orbit. Meanwhile, they teleported Superman, but they placed him in these beams that like hold him in place, even with his superpowers. But Superman's got a plan for that. So, they're talking about the old days when they used to enslave, like Vrangs used to enslave the Kryptonians. There was one Kryptonian called Valor, right on the nose, who dared to defy the Vrangs and died in the process, but in doing so inspired everyone to rise up against the Vrangs. And that's the history of the Kryptonians and the Vrangs. Kryptonians hate the Vrangs. The Vrangs think that they can enslave other planets. They're here to do that for Earth. And the Kryptonians, the Phantom Zone criminals, I mean, they're criminals, but they also have a little honor in them. They don't want this to happen to Earth. They don't want it to happen to anyone, and they really don't want the Vrangs to succeed. So here they are attacking the ship. The ship shoots out all these beams and stuff. They can't get past. Crazy art. Who did? I didn't go through the credits. Carrie Bates, of course, was writing Superman in this era. Alex Saviuk is the penciler, and Vince Colletta is the inker. Julius Schwartz is, of course, the editor, and the splash is inked by Pablo Marcos. So Superman has this plan where he's going to try to move, and since he's held in place in so doing, he'll move the ship itself with his strength. Meanwhile, the Vrangs kill like two of the Phantom Zone criminals, leaving General Zod and Faora, of course, because they're the stars. Here's an ad for the Remco Sergeant Rock commercial. Sergeant Rock action figure. At the time, G.I. Joe was huge. And so everyone tried to get in on the fray. I think the G.I. Joe relaunch, Real American Hero, was 82, around there. And so they were like, Sergeant Rock is on the move in 83. New from Remco, Sergeant Rock, tough action soldier, combat ready with weapon and gear, fully posable. I saw this everywhere. This is usually at the lower price point stores. Here in Canada, they would be called Towers, Wilco, Zellers. I never owned it because I'm an idiot. I should have totally asked to get that, but available at your favorite toy store. They don't show the figure. They just show all this great Joe Kubert art, so that's awesome. And I remember the card back had that Kubert art as well. So here's Superman straining to move the ship. Meanwhile, General Zod and Faora come up with a plan. They have a shard of the crystal kryptonite, and they figure if they blow up the crystal kryptonite, it eradicates everything around it, including the ship. But it also thrusts them back into the Phantom Zone. So they're like, you know what? Let's just do it. And that way, too, they get rid of Superman, they kill him, along with the ship, and if that means that they go back into the Phantom Zone, so be it, It's a double-edged victory, but it's a victory. So Superman twirls the ship around with his strength, being held in place still. And they figure out what it is. In order to slow down the ship, they need to divert power to whatever the heck it can, like the brakes or something, I don't know. And in so doing, they divert power from the thing that's holding Superman in place, so he's free. And he flies around beating the crap out of everyone. Now he's gonna slowly figure out what Faora and Zod are up to. And here's one of these trashy, this is the way ads used to be up to a point. By the late 80s, ads were more polished in comics, a lot more art and stuff, a lot more grabby. Here it looks like a want ad. It's just a bunch of different crazy things, used video game cartridges, Muscles in 7 Days, of course, the old standby of preying on young boys' insecurities and offering them a chance to develop their muscles. Who says if you can't send you send money to the American Red Cross. More bodybuilding stuff here. Ugly blackheads out in seconds. It looks like it's some sort of syringe that you use to suck it up. Whew. The old days. Poem set the music. Here's a meanwhile, and I think for this whole thing, we're just talking about why comics are awesome. So, Faora and General Zod shoot the crystal, call it Crystal K, but the crystal kryptonite blows up, destroys the ship. They're in a Phantom Zone. They're like, we killed Superman too, that's awesome. But he's in the Phantom Zone with them. He figured out what they were up to, so he's like, you know what, I'm safe from the ship, and I'll be around their vicinity to go into the Phantom Zone. I don't know how that works, but whatever. He has a shard of the crystal kryptonite as well. Somehow it's in the Phantom Zone with him, and he can use some sort of brainwave to get back. They always made up powers for Superman. That was just a thing. So he's back now in regular in a regular dimension, and the Phantom Zone characters are still in the Phantom Zone. And the way the Phantom Zone always worked is it's like you're in a place where you can't touch anything. So they're kind of like ghosts to us. So Superman crushes the Crystal K, so they can't escape again, and flies off, and that's the end of our adventure. For not the cosmic bonds of the Phantom Zone will deprive General Zod of his revenge. So there you go. I always, as a kid, wanted General Zod to be more like the movie version. I think the movie version really improved the character. General Zod was a nothing character up to that point. He turned up in the comics, but no one cared about that character. It was always Brainiac and Lex Luthor and Mixie Pitlick. Those are the big guys, and Parasite later, And they never retconned him in the comics to look like General Zod and act like General Zod from the movies, which was I thought, a vast improvement over the way he was in the comics. Here's a bunch of letters. The letters page. More letters page. 2 pages, wow. Burger Time, this ad graced everything, all comics in the early 1980s, especially DC Comics. And this is for the Intellivision, I assume, from Mattel Electronics. And here's an ad for James Bond, Octopussy. The Octopussy video game for, it's from Parker Brothers. It's for Atari, Atari 2600. This is one of these things they used to do. They used to make up fake, quotes and pull quotes. And it's what am I reading here? It's all this is written by you guys. So, I've never played this game. I'm sure it's awesome. It looks kind of cool. Hoping that the train isn't the only stage. It probably is because it's an Atari game. But yeah, so there you have it. Action Comics, 549 from 1983. I hope you enjoyed going through this with me. Take care.